The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. Today is Sunday, November 17th, and we are going to be breaking down the NBA slate for tomorrow, Monday, November 18th, and it's a full 9-game NBA slate. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by the one and only DFS Shark, the NBA DFS wizard himself, Mr. Michael Apotria. Michael, how are you, man? I feel like I haven't done a show with you in a month.
That's what it feels like, man. I missed you. My good buddy. You missed a lot over here. Kind of been getting a couple of our new guys fired up and ready to go, and joined by Andy and Miles over the weekend. Andy did a couple of shows. Miles and I did a show earlier during the weekdays, but. Yeah, man. I missed you. Plain and simple. I never thought I'd say that. I got a good few jabs in there on the shows where you weren't on.
Oh, I heard him. 282-year-old guy with 176 years of watching hoops, or whatever the numbers were. It was pretty ugly. That's all right. That's
it's all love, Coach. All love. You know that.
It's okay. No worries. But no, I'm with you though, man. It was I've missed you and missed talking hoops. But yeah, Miles. Hats off to Miles and Andy. Both doing their first pods, and you did a great job with them, and so did Andrew. So. Hats off to everybody for holding the fort down this weekend. I thought everybody had some terrific takes and hopefully really helped our listeners make some DFS money out there. But they did a great job. And I'll tell you what, Andrew was pretty darn humble for winning the coach's challenge and then just, sort of playing it cool. I think I might have been a little bit more frosty than that. But, he's a cool cat. That's why the girls call him Handsome Hanson. You know how it goes.
Yeah, he acts. You know what I mean. Act like you've been there before, and Andrew's the guy that's been there plenty of times, and that's why we love having him on this show. We know he's good, and I'm gonna be jealous when he takes a photo and sends me of him wearing his nice T-shirt. That was something I was really looking forward to winning, but I'll have my shot, Coach, one of these days, I'm sure.
It's sharp, man. It's the gray with the blue lettering. It's going out in the mail to Andrew. He'll have to wear it when you've got your chicken suit on. We can do the live feed for the NBA All-Star game.
Yeah,
because I'm winning.
We'll see if you do one tonight. How about that? We'll start with that one. Last time you chicken suit out and didn't want it, and you wanted a night off. So we'll see.
Look at this long string. I've had all these days now of being in the lead. It feels so good.
Well, we got 9 games. I'm sure we'll get one going tonight. So I'll have my chance to tie this back up.
Awesome, man. Well, we want to thank our presenting sponsor, Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. I know we've got now Miles and Andy have to get the coffee. You and I and Andrew are already guzzling it down every morning, so we get those guys aboard. We'll have the whole DFS team on the Kona bandwagon, but we want to thank them for being our presenting sponsor, and we look forward to getting this thing rolling. So let's do it. We've got 9 games. No sense in delaying any further because it is a pretty big slate, and there's so many guys hurt in the league. That's the one thing I'm shocked about is 10 games into an 82-game schedule, it seems like 25% of the league is out. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of injuries to talk about, a lot of injuries to deal with, and that just means loads of value in DFS generally. So On tonight's slate, we record this obviously the night before, so I'm talking about the Sunday slate. Loads of value all over the place. It was very hard to build a lineup and construct a lineup and not just gravitate towards the stars and scrub method. So, I think that, when we have that much value and this many games, again, like 9 games on, that's going to be a method that I think a lot of us will kind of tend to gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean it really just becomes the norm, as opposed to, just building that mid-level lineup. It's just almost impossible to do it because you're forced to take some of these super cheap guys, and that allows you to spend up on the big boys. But that seems to be the trend, in a lot of these tournaments. Even the game 50-50s seems to be a lot of people, jumbled up around the same number because everybody's doing the same thing. So we'll see. Let's try to find some gems in here to make some difference for the listeners to sort of stand out and step above. So, all right, let's go. We've got first game, 7 p.m. Eastern, and it's a real snooze fest here. The awesome 4-8 Cleveland Cavaliers against the stellar 3-10 New York Knicks. Good luck.
Yeah. So I'll start with the Cavs, and generally when I'm looking at the Cavs, I'm looking at their front court with Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson. They're both of their salaries are finally starting to come down to a range where we can really look at them and actually be enticed to play them. But Kevin Love's mostly available to play, so I'm not really worried about that. Good matchup for both.
I want to not to interrupt you, but he tweaked his knee during the game. You know that, right?
Yeah, and then that's what I'm speaking on.
When he's a tweak, he's usually sort of like an Anthony Davis tweak. It seems like he always sits. But I'm just saying. So didn't want to interrupt, but just
no. I'm glad you brought up the injury. I mean, I just said that he's supposedly going to be available to play. I did read a report that they're expecting him to play. So it doesn't mean I'm going to be playing him. I just wanted to mention him. If anything, I'd rather play Tristan Thompson because his salary really dipped down to $5,600, and the Knicks play big. So when we know that that the opposing team is going to be playing big, that's how we know that we can really expect north of 30 minutes for Thompson. And Larry Nance is considered doubtful at this point. So with Nance doubtful, I think he's expected a few more minutes. Zizic is back, but working his way back from plantar fasciitis that kind of limited him. He didn't even play in the preseason and just played in his first game. I wouldn't expect anything much from him. So I'm okay with going to the front court and just mainly Thompson.
Well, this will be a low over-under, and these teams are so bad, man. I watched the Cavs earlier today, and they're just old Coach Beeline, man. I love him, but he's got a ton of work to do with this team. They just turned it over like crazy, and just did not look good. And it's hard, especially if I don't trust Love's status, and I think Mitchell Robinson's a rough matchup for Tristan Thompson. I mean, he's going to have a little bit of difficulty unless he can get him in foul trouble because Mitchell seems to be playing a little bit better. The Knicks share the ball. They split minutes all over the place, because they have the free agency, the genius move of signing 6 power forwards goes into this. Fizdale somehow still hanging on to his job by a thread. But all that to be said, I'm passing this game. With 9 games, I'm going to consider it an 8-game slate, bro.
I don't blame you because I really have no interest on anybody on the Knicks, really. Just like you said, a bunch of poor situations. I will just say, monitor Randall. His price tag did jump up a little bit, but, when it's floating around that mid-6 range, I think there's still a little juice left on the bone, as I say, Coach.
Yes.
But not in this matchup, I don't think it's anything that really, entices me to gravitate towards it. So, Thompson, if you want to take a shot on anybody, that's pretty much where I'm drawing the line.
I don't blame you. And I'm going to look at as we speak here because it's so important. This next game is 7:30 Indiana Pacers at the Brooklyn Nets. And this is where we start getting into so many guys out. How does it affect everybody else on the floor. So we know right now that Sabonis with a right hip contusion is questionable. Brogdon with a back is out. Those are two monsters. Jeremy Lamb is questionable with a left ankle sprain, and it's leaning more towards doubtful than questionable. TJ McConnell's questionable with an injury as well. And so they are just decimated there. So what does that do for you on the Pacers side of the ball?
So yeah, obviously Brogdon, being on the better half, doubtful, ruled out. I think that obviously opens up Aaron Holiday sliding over and playing the one. And we saw they got a ton of usage, ton of minutes, still at a fair price tag, pretty good matchup. So I still think he's in play at 5,500 on DraftKings. I'm not going to go overboard just because he's replacing him because yes, the price is up. So that's the one thing I think I'm going to be the most interested in. I like the shot attempts there too. He wasn't afraid to shoot. Even having his older brother in the starting lineup, you think he'd maybe be a little bit more timid. But the 18 shot attempts, he only shot 27% from the field and put up 29 DraftKings points. So that's the definition of juice left on the bone. Just knowing that if he shot even 40%, he was looking at like a 35-point night. And that's definitely a difference maker, I think, in this matchup. And, Jeremy Lamb is one injury that I'm really monitoring because if he does play, then we'll probably see him start and play limited minutes, and then we'd end up seeing, Justin Holiday move back to the bench. But if he's out again, Justin Holiday starting at 4,200, not a huge upside guy. He's really boom or bust, but he's almost like a Kent Bazemore type player where he can rack up steals, get decent rebounds for a guard and do it in a couple different ways. So I think that would be my main interest. If Sabonis is out, definitely look at Miles Turner, center going against the Nets. But that's something that we're going to have to wait and see on. And if Sabonis does play, and if we don't hear if there's any limitations, his price is down to 7,300 and going against the Nets, big rebounder. Targeting one of these guys in the front court is generally on a consensus night going to be good for you if they're playing the Nets.
Yeah, good take. I've got my eye on two Pacers in this game that I'm planning on dialing up. I mean, Indiana's 26th in the league in pace. Brooklyn's third. So it's a monster pace-up game for Indiana, even with all those guys out. And maybe even more so because Sabonis is a little bit more of a half-court set kind of a player. So I'm going to turn my attention definitely to Aaron Holiday for some of the reasons that you just stated. Plus, I just think he's got a lot of upside. And with TJ McConnell very possibly not playing either, I mean, he really has to soak up a lot of point guard minutes here. And I think he's very capable of doing it. I think he's got starter ability, and he just has needed a little bit more time out there. The other guy I like is TJ Warren. When other players are out that have good usage, like Sabonis and Lamb and huge Brogdon, he's a top 15 usage guy, then, that has to funnel a lot towards Warren. He's not shy. He takes a lot of shots when it's needed, and he can, hit the jumper. He's a slasher, draws a lot of fouls. So I think he fits really well in this game without question. On the other side of the ball, we've got Kyrie Irving listed as questionable. But, it's a right shoulder impingement. So, I'm not sure what that means or what that's going to do to his likelihood to play. It's just strictly a questionable, so we've got to follow that news tomorrow. But if he's out, I think, Spencer Dinwiddie's certainly a good guy to go to, especially with the inexperience of the backcourt with Brogdon being out. I would never play him with Brogdon's defense in there, but I think Dinwiddie's a good option because they're also missing LeVert. And so they've got to pick up some of that slack. You also can consider Taurean Prince as a good GPP play because he gets mid to upper 30s in minutes every game. But really, that's the only other guy I'm looking at from the Nets.
Yeah, it's Dinwiddie. I think Dinwiddie is going to be the most prime candidate we saw in the last game. A lot of the minutes and usage are pretty much being thrown right at him and Joe Harris directly. And Joe Harris came out and put up a massive game. I think it was something like
Yes.
28 and 4. So like that's something that I think that's that upside that we could see in him. Doesn't mean that we're going to get that on a night to night basis, but he's definitely capable of putting up high 20s to 30 DraftKings points with this sort of role. So I think more or less, I'm looking at Harris. I'm looking at Dinwiddie. I'd probably have just obviously, I think more Harris, more interest in Dinwiddie. I meant to say,
Yeah.
just simply because we know exactly what kind of ball handling responsibilities he's going to have. The Nets can kind of swap in a few different other guys at the wings. They're throwing Temple in the starting lineup as well, so they can mix and match. But the bottom line is Dinwiddie's going to have to play a ton of point guard for him. And I'm glad you brought up Warren because, yeah, I kind of glanced right over him and I didn't really mention him, but he took 21 shot attempts in the last game. He's not a guy that's ever gun shy. He's going to have a ton of usage. And the way that the Nets do play is that they like to run Prince at the 4 a lot. And, it just makes more sense if they decided to go small. If they wanted to sit Sabonis, this would be a matchup that it would make perfect sense just to give him a nice night off, let him rest up a little bit and get ready for the next one.
Yeah, no doubt. Um, I was going to say too, Joe Harris had a career high 8 assists in that last game. So, I see that as a bit of an aberration. I don't think. I mean, I like Joe Harris; he's solid, but I think some of that, if Kyrie sits again, will shift more over to Dinwiddie. I think, it'd be such a points chase to go after Harris in this spot, in my opinion. So I'm with you. All right, let's move on to game 3, 7:30 game, Charlotte Hornets at the Toronto Raptors. Interesting game. Charlotte's 6-7. It looks like Devontae Graham is their star. I mean, whoever would believe that a guy that wasn't, was going to be interesting to see if he made the roster, to then, getting a few minutes and then getting a lot of minutes to now starting being the best player hitting game-winning shots. So amazing how fast in 13 games Devontae Graham has gone from obscurity to the best player right now on the Charlotte Hornets team, period. And that's pretty amazing ascent. Playing the Raptors in Toronto, though, Toronto's coming off a really tough, long road trip, and they were successful. They're 8-4 overall, playing with definitely the heart of champions, especially without Lowry and Ibaka. They've showed a ton of grit. Van Vliet and Siakam have been phenomenal. Toronto's a good defensive team. To me, Charlotte, it's hard to really want to play too many folks on that side of the ball other than Devontae Graham, and I just don't think this matchup really suits him well with Van Vliet getting all on him and some of their other guards that they rotate in as well. So I'm fading on the Charlotte side. Van Vliet has just won my respect, man. That dude, is tops in the league in minutes played right now. His usages continue to go up and up, and I think you almost, unless it's a really bad matchup, you have to almost consider Van Vliet and Siakam in every game that they play because they're just such dominant usage. I mean, I've seen people try to talk about squeezing the juice out of the bone from old Marc Gasol, but he just does not look like the same guy. I think his regression, I think he gave the last he had in winning that FIBA this summer. I just don't see him being a viable option, on any slate to me anymore. And I know that's a big statement and a quick descend as opposed to Devontae, but I just don't see him consistently doing much in there. So, I'm going to consider and talk about both Van Vliet and Siakam on most cards, but I see this game just as a lower scoring defensive game on the Toronto side, where Van Vliet is going to make some of my lineups for sure. Siakam's price has become a little bit prohibitive for me, especially on a 9-game slate. But unfortunately, that's all I like here as well. These first 3 games are tough to dial up many guys.
Yeah, Van Vliet is the only person I think on either team I'd have any interest in. I mean, just the price tags are the only things keeping me away from Siakam, and Powell's got a little price bump. So I think just I don't know why they won't price up Van Vliet. I think he should be a guy that's like 8,400. I think he'll get to that price tag. But yeah, until then, he's definitely in consideration every single night.
I'm with you, no doubt. All right, Game 4 is an 8 o'clock game. Milwaukee Bucks at the Chicago Bulls. Interesting game here. Injury-wise, we know Middleton's out. Otto Porter is out for the Bulls again. I believe that is what I saw. I'm going to look real quick to make sure. What's your take on this game?
I think on the Milwaukee side, I'm going to just stick with my trend that I've been just riding Eric Bledsoe. When you look at the price tags between him and Van Vliet, you're really cutting hairs. I think both these guys, night in and night out, have pretty similar upsides. I think, we just saw this game a few nights ago. Bledsoe did fantastic. The one thing you'd be worried about is Chicago keeping it close, but they kept it close. They played well in that game, and they played long enough where these guys had to see meaningful minutes, and he was able to catch a little bit of fire in it. So I think I'm okay if you want to go back to Bledsoe. Giannis on any given night is always in play. He blew up in this game the other day. So listen, you want to play him? I'm not going to have any qualms with it. There's a few other guys that we'll get to that are pretty priced up as well. So I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I'm really just going to be looking at Bledsoe, and then I'm not really going to be taking too many stabs at those wings that are kind of soaking up Middleton's minutes. They're really just kind of divvying them up amongst all of them, and none of them are really carrying too heavy of a usage coming in.
Yeah, and the actuality, in looking at the usage, really those guys didn't benefit. It just gave more usage to Bledsoe and Giannis. They both jumped up with Middleton going out, which you would think it would get a little bit more spread out, but it certainly brings those two guys into play even more. Chicago's the 9th fastest team, and Milwaukee is the fastest paced team in the league right now, which is just shocking to me. I never saw that coming, but they are number 1 as of tonight. So you've got a great paced game here that's going to get up and down, and I don't know if people are really going to zone in on this game now. Yes, Giannis and Bledsoe crushed it. Can you really take the gamble of going with both of them? Because if it blows out, you're dead in the water. I don't think you can. I think you can take certainly a stand on one or the other. Giannis has to get 65.5 fantasy points to make 5x. That's a lot of points. Now, maybe it's not for Giannis, but it gives you some concern when a guy can throw 60 fantasy points up on the board. The game sort of blows out, and then you're not even making value with the guy. So, I think I'm probably going to go Bledsoe because he's still priced well enough that, he can 6 or 7x against a Bulls team that seems to be relying more and more on Kobe White to do some scoring from the perimeter. So, his price is still decent. The problem is he's going to get some, George Hill defense and some Wesley Matthews defense and a few other guys that are really good defensively. And, for that reason, I'm not quite going to jump on the Kobe bandwagon in this game. Against some other teams, you will see that I'm going to start rostering Kobe, though, because his use has gone up. There's a rotation, 2 rotations of their players when he is the highest usage guy on the entire floor, more than Markkanen, and even it's when Levine is out, because Levine always is the guy when he's in there. Can you roster Levine? Certainly, you always can, because he's, last game he was 11 for 24 from the field, 11 for 12 from the line, 36 points. I mean, he's going to score. What you need from him, though, is you need to catch him on that night where he gets 6 or 7 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, and 2 or 3 steals and a block, which he doesn't often do. He does. He's a points dependent guy, and against a good scheme Milwaukee defense, it's enough to scare me off. So this game, I'm going Bledsoe, and I'm probably not going anywhere else.
Yeah, don't blame you. At the other side of the ball, it's really hard to find someone that you really think feel confident and trusting to really run it back with, and that's my only struggle with playing any of the Bucks in this kind of format. I just don't like anybody on the other side. But the team overall can really play well, and they're a little bit deep now on the wings and with their guards. So I feel like that kind of helps them out in this kind of scenario. But yeah, just Bledsoe for me. I don't think you really need to dumpster dive too much with any of the other guys like your Thad Youngs and your DiVincenzo's and those players.
Yeah, they're just too risky, and you take 8 fantasy points from a guy or something and it just murders your lineup. So, all right, middle of the pack here. We go to Game 5, 8 p.m. Eastern. Portland Trail Blazers at the Houston Rockets. Obviously, we haven't talked about this, but the crazy news of Carmelo Anthony signing with the Portland Trail Blazers. What do you think of that, man?
You know what? From a basketball perspective, Coach, I like it. I mean, I don't think Anthony should ever have been blackballed. I think the only struggle that anybody ever had with bringing him to a team, and the only argumentative thing that I could agree with is the fact that he wasn't ever comfortable with his role. But you have to imagine maybe at this point, after having this much time off and seeing how no teams were interested, that he has no choice but to be comfortable with the role, and he's joining a team that is in need of a stretch four. So, it's a good fit, and it's something that we're gonna have to monitor. Once his pricing and everything comes out, and we can see what he's gonna be priced at, we could really even really make a decision. But he's expected to join the team on Tuesday. I don't know if that necessarily it means he'll be playing with them on Tuesday, so we don't really even need to worry about him tonight. Tuesday is when he's expected to join the team. I don't even know if he's going to be playing on that game.
Right, yeah. I would think they'll give him a little time probably to get acclimated, but yeah, I don't mind the move either, believe it or not. I mean, Portland is sort of desperate. They're 5-8. Other than Lillard and McCollum, they've just been atrocious, and they're going nowhere fast. So sometimes you got to roll the dice like that. I think it's worth the gamble, but this game, this is the one I was waiting for. This is the feature game. Yeah, it's on NBA TV. I hate when there's a national televised game because it always gets more ownership for the folks that don't have the league pass, which is a bummer. But to me, if you don't stack 2 or 3 or 4 guys from this game, even though it's a 9-game slate, you're not going to have the winning lineup. I haven't looked at any of the pre-over-under numbers. This one has to be like ludicrous, though. You've got 2 teams that aren't playing good. They're 2 of the 9 fastest-paced teams in the league. Everybody all over the board is going to be scoring points here. You still have some question marks from the Houston side of some guys that may be back in-house, and somebody else was questionable that could be back as well. They do have a few guys filtering in, but of course, Westbrook will be back. But, again, there's just going to be too many DFS points that come flying out of this game. I mean, yes, Harden's price is absolutely insane. He has to, go upper 60s in fantasy points to low 70s to really smack it for you at all. And that's intimidating, but I'm still going to roster the guy. I think Harden's I see 75 DFS points. They actually had a night off. Portland's defense is horrible. I think you roll them up and then you follow back up on the other side if you want to let it all hang loose and go with Dame, or you can go down a little bit and go with CJ. I think those guys are just automatic. The other guy I was trying to think of that's possibly back tomorrow is Capella. He and House, I believe, are going to play. So I would like to dial up a third guy. I know I'll be spending a big chunk of cash in this game, but I think it's going to be worth it. So I'm going to go either Harden, Lillard, or Harden and McCollum, and then whoever I can fit in for that third wheel, whether it be PJ Tucker or one of the other guys, I think that will round out the roster. I'd like to have a lot of representation from this game.
Yeah, I think for me, looking at the Houston side of the ball, I think James Harden's in play on every single slate. I think when it's all said and done, I might be a little bit, under the weight compared to you because you sound like you're going to be firing up a lot. I'm definitely going to have a few shares, but the way I'm looking at my construction right now, it looks like I'm going to be struggling to get there. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go to Westbrook, though. I don't know. I'm with you, Coach. I love this game. I'm just going to be struggling to stack it because it is a 9-game slate. There are targets and other games I'm definitely going to want shots at. I really love Lillard's price, though, at 8,600 on DraftKings.
How can you pass that up? There's just almost no way to do it.
He should be like 94, 9,500, right up there with Bradley Beal when he's at his top tier pricing and those other guys. So I'm definitely on him. And looking at the Houston side of the ball, obviously we are going to want some targets in here though. So I think PJ Tucker makes some sense to play in this game. It just seems like it'll fit him well. Capella and House are both probable, so you hit that nail on the head, Coach. They are expected to play, and I think this could be one of those weird, I'm GPP. Obviously, when I say it, Kent Bay's more like games. They're going to need his defense, and there's going to be a ton of turnovers left and right between James Harden and Westbrook handling the ball. So I can envision him, getting like 3 or 4 steals in this one.
You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm just going to go out there and say it on the show now and just stink and go for it, man. I think I'm going to drop my proverbial DFS pants here and just go for it. And I think I'm going to roster Harden, Lillard, and McCollum and just figure out a way to make the rest of it work. There's enough value spots where, if this game goes the way I think it will and it ends up 144, 130, something like that, I think I can just have such a distinct edge on the field. I haven't stacked a game to that point this entire season, but this just it's like a shining red beaming light that just says go for this on this slate. So I very well may do it. Yes, it takes out Luka and Kemba and Cat. I get that. I get it. But there's enough value that I can find with all the guys that are out to make this work, the Aaron Holidays, etc. So there you go, man. I'm going to say it. It's 10:03 here in Dallas the night before this slate goes out. But I'm telling you, you're going to see crazy Vegas numbers, and all the stars seem to be aligned. I'm going for it, brother. So there you go.
I don't hate the idea, Coach. It does sound like it's definitely a correlated stack that can be profitable. I think when it's all said and done, I think that when you're looking at this game, if it does hit some sort of a game total, like you said, it's going to be largely a part of those two guys on the Portland side of the ball. At the end of the day, they're the heart and soul of the team, and if they're winning a game, it's got to do with one of them, if not both of them. I struggle getting C.J. McCollum right, but I can easily see him taking advantage of the James Harden defense in this matchup.
Big time, because Westbrook's going to guard Lillard, so he's going to get that Harden defense. But awesome. Well, I might as well just not even do the final 4 games. I don't have any salary left.
You're done. You're tapped.
I'm tapped. It's dumpster dive here. So all right, let's take that thought into this fun game at 8:30 Eastern, the San Antonio Spurs at the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm already searching for value as I'm scrambling here. But Luke has been just absolutely. I know we talk about it every time, but we're both Mavs fans, so we can gloat. He's just been absolutely unbelievable. And, this will be interesting against San Antonio. DeJounte Murray sat the last game for rest because they don't want to play him on back-to-back. So he's going to be completely fresh. He's a heck of a defender. He's a little undersized, not much, though, to guard Luka. He'll play him. And, they'll rotate some other solid defenders on him as well. But, I think he'll do fine against the Spurs. They're going to try to slow it down. But they're not playing that well. They're 5-8. It's in Dallas. So I think, they have a chance, to make some noise here. Luka and Porzingis are always options on every slate. I'm certainly not, I can't afford those guys with my roster build. And, plus the Spurs, they're always a thorn in the Dallas side generally defensively and causes some trouble. I wouldn't doubt this is going to be a tight game, even though Dallas will be favored. I think the Spurs will give them some noise. And, I say this every show, but it's worth saying. I just don't like playing any Spurs. They all share the ball. They all split minutes. Very seldom does somebody have a blow-up game. And if it is, it's somebody weird like the one game where Patty Mills had 28, one game Rudy Gay had 26. I mean, if you can guess which Spurs going to have the big game, more power to you. But it has not been DeRozan and Aldridge on any type of consistent basis. And the guards all split time. So, I doubt, this might be a game I can get a little roster relief as far as salary and maybe squeeze in a Dwight Powell or somebody of that nature. But other than that, I'm not going anywhere in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not playing any of the Spurs with Murray being healthy and playing. I was on White a little bit last game. Porzingis, I think, not the best matchup for him. A little bit of a price bump from where he was at before. So I'll pass on him. Doncic is always a play for me. You said it yourself. Just the upside doesn't matchup proof at this point. But that's really it. I'm not really too enticed by anybody else in this. I think 9 games, we could look elsewhere.
Definitely. All right, we go to the 3 later slate games. There's a 9 p.m. Eastern game. This should be a lot of fun. Celtics coming off that crushing defeat today where Marcus Smart's game-winning shot laid on the rim. Looked like it was way more in than the ball that went in last year for Kawhi, but somehow found its way out. So they're coming off that buzzer loss. And they have to travel to Phoenix. And, Phoenix 7-4 has been scrappy as all get out against everybody. Even with that loss today, though, Boston's still a real impressive 10-2. But both of these teams, their defensive scheme has been great. They have both improved tremendously. Even Boston from the defensive efficiency side. And, they're not the fastest paced teams in the league. Right now, Boston's sitting at 17. Phoenix is up to 8, so they've picked it up a little bit. But I think, Boston has a tendency to set pace in the game a bit. And, I don't see this blowing out wise as far as points go. Now, you look at today's box score, there was some sharing of the ball, some guys that stepped up, but there's also a lot of guys rotating minutes with Boston. I think being on a long road trip has definitely, played part of that. And then obviously, with Hayward going down. But it's, today it wasn't Brown and Tatum stepping up as much. You had different guys. They're using a lot of bench. I mean, even though they're winning a lot, it seems like every time you look, it's Wanamaker and Edwards and that Green, that young kid Green. I mean, they're playing a lot of guys, and it makes it hard to really want to target many of these guys because the Tatums and Browns and Kembas are fairly expensive. I wouldn't trust the whole Canner, Williams, Tice mixture at big. They're all split minutes, so that makes it tough there. Then on the Phoenix side, do you go with Book? I don't think so, because Marcus Smart's going to be all up in his business, and that scares me from the Booker side. As great as he's playing, with shooting the 90, 50, 40, just being terrific. Uh, you know, Also, Rubio again. He could easily throw up one of his 1 for 8 shooting games, or go 7 for 10. I mean, he's just very hard to pinpoint. I like Baines in this game. I think he's going to step up against this Boston team who could have paid him and didn't, and sort of let him hit the road. And I like him in this matchup. I think he's going to show up and dominate, especially if Canner's in there. He'll just eat him for lunch, and then some. I also sort of like Oubre Jr. I think this game, fits him well for the guys that will be guarding him on the wings. Definitely not a game I'm going to target, but Baines is probably cheap enough to make my. Not super cheap, but cheap enough to make my build around my big stars. How about you?
The Baines revenge narrative is definitely a thing. I think that he would actually fit well in Boston right now. Looking at this jumble of centers that they have, he'd easily be the best one of the bunch. So, I think that's definitely something we could key on. His price tag went down a little bit, down at 5,100 on DK. I am going to have a little interest in the guard rotation over there in Phoenix between Booker and Rubio. Booker having a career game for half the Hall of Famers in the Hall of Fame. Against Boston and Marcus Smart on that night. So I'm not necessarily scared off. This guy's not afraid of double teams. He said it in the gym. He gets it all the time. So he's almost a guy that is almost arguably considered matchup proof at this point in his career. He's a scorer. He's a volume scorer. He can score on a lot of people. Is he going to have the same ancillary stats in matchups like rebounds and assists that he would against a bad team? Probably not, but I think he can still score with the best of them against any team. I could see this game staying fairly close and being a tight one towards the end. So I'm going to struggle paying some of the price tags for those Boston guys. Kemba Walker I think is fair at 84 just because the floor is pretty secure. When you look at Tatum and Brown and their similar price tags at seven in the mid sevens on DraftKings. We also know that they have pretty low floors. Like those guys can come out here and put up 16 to 22 DK points and really sink you. Kemba at 84, you're pretty much looking at a floor of 30, maybe mid 30s with the upside of 50 and 60. So I'm okay with paying that price tag. Not really interested in the other guys though. So for me, it's gonna be Booker, Rubio, Kemba. I know it sounds a little generic and plain being the studs, but I just don't think this is a scenario where you really need to go overboard. I think Dario Saric, maybe keep an eye on. He's been absolutely playing fantastic. I don't really like this sort of matchup for him. I think that he can have some struggle trying to chase Tatum around on the wing. So I'm keeping my eye on him for future matchups. I don't really love him in this one. It wouldn't shock me though if he keeps playing 30 minutes if he has a good one.
Not a bad one. I wish I could afford Kemba because I do like Kemba in this game. I think he'll have a nice game. I just I'll tell you if there's two matchups, the only time I would shy from Booker, and this is just my own opinion, is if they're playing the Clippers and Pat Beverly or the Celtics and Marcus Smart. Just my own gut feeling of those are the two guys that I think can give Booker the most trouble. Now I know Booker scorched him, but at the time when that happened, I don't think Smart was playing as well. It just concerns me because Booker's price is starting to get up there, but he could. When he gets hot, it like you said, it really doesn't matter.
It's only 8K on DraftKings, Coach. He's I think
is he 8K now?
8K.
Okay.
So I think it's it's a bump that we're seeing. We also just we're looking at it with the Hornets. When you're going against a good defensive team, DraftKings takes that into account, and we see a lot of these guys kind of see a really depressed salary compared to where they normally would be. So we were just talking about Devontae Graham, and his price tag went down. after another big game, and it went down because they're playing the Raptors. And I think Booker's price tag is going down because they're playing Boston. So when I look at guys who I think are matchup proof on the scoring side, which I think Booker is, I think he can drop 30 on anybody any given night. When you're getting that kind of upside, and that's where most of his value does come from, you could take advantage of the price tag dip. And so that's my main interest, and I kind of blurted it out in too many words. So would I be shocked if he has like a very mediocre game? No, Boston has a fantastic defense. But I think a lot of other people are going to look at it from that. We're going to be able to get Booker at a depressed salary and a depressed ownership because of Boston's defense at the same time.
As long as you're not depressed with his results.
That's the goal. That's what we're hoping that we're not. Maybe he'll give me a decent return, and I'll be able to take some of those winnings and go on a nice cruise and change my depressed attitude from my depressed salary and depressed ownerships.
Yeah, and I think DraftKings is probably where he's priced the best too. So it might be site dependent on some of Booker's stuff too. But that should be a fun game to watch, though. That's one of those ones I'm going to dial up for sure. All right, 2 games left. Another 9 o'clock Eastern, and it's Timberwolves and Jazz. And for once, I'm not going to be sad for not having cap money because he gets to go against, you talk about a depressing defense. The Utah Jazz will depress just about anybody. They slow it down to a crawl. They play ugly. They foul. They get it done. They're 8-4, which is solid. And, if anybody can slow Cat down, I think that they can. I believe Wiggins is out for this game, though.
Doubtful right now.
Yeah.
Not
so that definitely makes you want to play Cat and even maybe a Teague just because, Wiggins has been monster use this year. But I'm going to just hope the Stifle Tower can give Cat some trouble and slow him down enough, and he'll be on my fade machine, but I'll definitely be worried. I don't think Jeff Teague is a bad play. Yes, Conley plays really solid D, not quite, like I've said, to the level that he used to, but good. And Teague isn't, he's coming back from that illness, so I don't know if he's 100% and ready to roll. But it's just such a hard game with a slow pace. Even though Minnesota plays fast, they're 5th, but you're looking at, just Utah 24th and being in the top 5 in defensive efficiency just makes it a hard game to target anybody else. This might be a game to find one of the ancillary pieces to round out a lineup, a guy that, may be able to throw a decent game on the board like a Royce O'Neal or somebody of that nature. But just definitely not a game to target. I mean, if you want to cherry pick a guy out of this game, I get it. If you're going to play Cat, I get it. But after that, it's just a tough game.
Yeah, when you look at these guys, it's weird with the pricing. You would expect it to be almost the opposite of what we just talked about. They're going against, a good Utah Jazz defense. We expect them to get priced down. Cat at 10-2 going against Rudy Gobert. If he was around that 96, 98 price tag, I would definitely have a ton of shares of him just because I know that he's a guy that can still play well against anybody regardless. But when you're looking at his price tag and him being, more expensive than 95% of the slate, you really have to think about that. I think that there's still a little juice left in the bone with Teague and Covington. They did get a little price bump, but it's not enough that I think it completely pulls them off the table. I was going to be excited to look at Layman on this slate, but that his price bump at 5K, it's just too much. If he was still in that 42, 43, 44 range, I would maybe take a couple stabs at him. But at this point at 5K, I'm not really down for chasing those points. Going over to the Utah side, I think this is a good pace bump for all of them. I think that a lot of these guys are going to be in play. I think Gobert is going to have to play. 8,200 is pretty much the prototypical Gobert price now. It's what he feels like he is every single night. But we've been seeing these massive rebounding games where he's been paying off for it a lot. 3 out of the past 4 games, his lowest score was 48 with a high of 55. And I think that it's another game where I wouldn't mind taking a look at him. When it's all said and done, we do have some other center options on the slate, and are we going to be able to afford them is the question mark. But he's definitely in a plus matchup, and I think the same can be said with Mitchell and Conley. When I'm looking at Mitchell, I think I'd rather pay for a guy like Booker. At just only 100 more, just thinking that I want to take advantage of that situation and that matchup like we just spoke about. And
Right.
Conley, I'm kind of just still steering clear from. He's starting to pick it up and turn it around. We're seeing the shot attempts up. But the field goal percentage is still a little down, and I'm kind of waiting for him to right this ship before I want to put my money on him.
I don't blame you, man. Good take. Good take. All right, before we get to the last game, and it has a lot of intrigue to it, just again, want to thank our presenting sponsor, Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, the original sponsor of hoop-ball.com. Definitely go to hoop-ball.com. Check out our premium package. Sign up for Brew's newsletter. It's a terrific newsletter with great insight. Only way to get it is going through our website and signing up. Also, wanted to mention too, this is a two-step process. Listen to this show in the morning on your way to work or at lunch, during a break, whatever. Start building that lineup in your head of what you're going to have for your main DFS core. But then you got to follow up on the news, because all this news that breaks throughout the day tomorrow, all the way up until lock, is what's going to really formulate your lineup. So go to @Hoopball Fantasy on Twitter. You'll see our blurbs, all the updates up there. Also go to hoop-ball.com, hit forums, go to the DFS thread. Miles and Andy, who are now podcast or DFS guys too, they're always doing the updates on there and posting things. I'm usually throwing a lot of player news up there as well. And then follow all of us on Twitter. I mean, we're always active, posting, answering questions. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He's at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. And then Andrew is at Language Olympic. The other two guys, I do not have their Twitter handles written down here. I think it's Miles6565, something like that.
Yes, so yeah, definitely. Miles is Miles6565, and then
Wow, for an old coach, dude. Hey, I want an apology on that 187-year-old thing. I pulled that out of my brain. Late at night, long weekend, and I remembered Miles' Twitter handle. So
yeah, well, not bad, Coach, not bad. And then Drew, Andrew's
Andy.
over at Andy over at Drew J Gallagher, and it's spelled Drew, letter J, and Gallagher.
That sounds pretty fancy schmancy. Drew J. Gallagher, excuse me.
The middle initial.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. Awesome. That's it. That's what we needed to do before we go over this last game. I'll tell you, one of the most amazing things I've seen in sports this year, in my opinion, and I think it's going under noticed, is the first two games that Paul George has played in limited minutes.
Fantastic.
Have you seen his numbers?
Fantastic. Yeah, he looks like he hasn't missed a beat. It looks like he didn't have any shoulder surgery. It looks like, the guy that was an MVP candidate. So I'm thoroughly excited to see what this team can do healthy. This is all without Kawhi Leonard even playing. So, let's see. He's questionable coming into the game. I can't wait to watch this whole. I want to see this defense, because we're talking about Pat Bev and Leonard, and this defense hasn't been healthy yet. When they are healthy, it's going to be devastating.
I'll tell you, if Kawhi, they're just going to load manage, or they're calling it injury manage, the rest of the season with him. But I'll tell you what, if this is a glimpse of what Paul George is going to play like, I don't know how anybody's going to beat him. And I know the Lakers fans are going to throw a fit, and some of the Milwaukee people and all that. But I don't know. I don't see how that squad, with anchored by Kawhi and Paul George on playing both sides, it's just going to be unbeatable. Now, I don't know what the heck. Kawhi missed 2 in a row now. So out of the 12 games, he's already missed 4. He's played 8 and missed 4. Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked actually, so I'm not going to say it's unbelievable. It's kind of something that at Hoop Ball we were mentioning in the preseason with our season long kind of leagues
Yeah.
is that we have to take that into account, and that could be the difference maker to drop him down from a guy that should be going probably like 7th or 6th or 5th overall in season long leagues down to a back end first rounder or beginning of the second round type of guy.
Yeah, and I mean it's a killer in DFS too because with 2 of the main sites not having a late swap, you plug Kawhi in and then they decide they're going to sit him, you're screwed. So yeah, it's tough. I have no idea. I guess it's completely 50-50 if he plays tomorrow. So, and I said to fade George both first games because how do you play a guy that might play 20 minutes coming off being out for this long, and here he just obliterated his numbers both times out. So, I'm not going to underestimate George. I'm not going to dial him up. Yes, it's against the Thunder, so that's a big narrative as well. And it's in LA. I mean, I certainly wouldn't fault anybody for dialing up Paul George. But I'm not sure on the Thunder side. There are some options there. Chris Paul going back to the playing in LA and his old stomping grounds. I know it's been a while ago.
We know he knows where the secret tunnel is too.
Yes, he knows how to go in and maybe steal some of the information. Yes, but Paul just hasn't been an option for me all year at his price tag. Shea is always a possibility, but it's the Clippers defense. So, it's all contingent on the Kawhi news. If Kawhi sits, it brings, 2 or 3 players into play for the Clippers immediately. If he plays, then, it's a completely different situation because of the usage. So, and on the Thunder side, after that, I'm not sure where you want to go there. Adams has shown some signs on and off of playing okay, but they seem to be just in transition. These new young guys, Diallo and Baisley, and all these guys are getting minutes. I know Diallo was dinged up, so I'm not sure his status. We'll have to check that, but I would say just keep an eye on this particular game. And, it's one of those where we have to get, significant concrete news if you're going to, dial these guys up in a 10:30 p.m. Eastern game, especially on the sites where you can't late swap.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat with you on both sides of the ball. I think if Leonard sits, I'll look at the Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell stack over there. Once Leonard is playing and Paul George is healthy and both these guys are looking at 30 minutes, it's going to be hard for me to gravitate towards that stack anymore. We're not going to see as much of the usage. I think this team's going to have the capability to blow a lot of teams out very quickly as well. And that's going to actually help them. And, they're going to look to do that. That's a way that you can see Kawhi Leonard get even more rest. So I don't think that they're going to be opposed to, resting these guys when they're up 20, 30 points in the game. So I think those guys, if Leonard out, are in play. I'm not really going to have too many shares of, anybody really on LA if they're all healthy. It is a good game. And on the other side of the ball, I think, Shea's in play. I think it's a good game. Fair price tag at 6,300. And I think this could be a little bit of a Dennis Schroeder game. Strict GPP play, kind of like you have to have like those gut feels when you're playing Schroeder. And I'm kind of feeling one of those. So there's no stat merit to it. It just kind of feels like one of those rhythm type games where even in garbage time, they'll still see some decent minutes and end up with a high scoring game and playing in the fourth quarter. So I think that's kind of my exposure. But I'm really not interested in the late night hammer at all. And I hate that because I always want to have somebody in the late night hammer. That way, when it starts, I'm not just seeing my place go down. It's only going up. But
yeah, it's weird. I've been on both sides of that, where you're just there rooting against guys. And that's always, that can be fun or it can be painful. It just depends. But I think this is one of those, just keep an eye on all those news sources that I mentioned earlier for tomorrow. And, if we get some concrete news on some of these guys, then, you can adjust accordingly. So, all right, man, fun 9-game slate for a Monday. It's going to be awesome. That is really cool. Tomorrow night, I get to do a nice little quiet 4-game slate all by myself. So that'll be very easy to do, and that'll be fun. So I look forward to jumping on for that one. But any other comments or anything else about the slate or anything else?
Nah, man, I think I'm good to go.
All right. Well, I think we are good. We are good and ready to make some DFS money again tomorrow. So let's do it. All right. Well, we thank you for your listenership. Thank you for growing constantly with us. You can listen to us every day. Just do a search for NBA DFS Today or just DFS Today podcast. We're going to come up everywhere podcasts are found. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube. Take a second if you could. 5-star, like us, positive remarks. Those really help us. We're going to continue to build this, continue to grow it, and all those responses mean a lot to us and our sponsors going forward. So we appreciate it, man, and thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us on Hoopball NBA DFS today. For my man Mike Patry, I'm Coach. We'll catch you again tomorrow when we look to crush it in NBA DFS.
See you later, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.